Next level shit right there.
Next level shit. Pre-show cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers to you.
Yeah.
Cheers to you. God, dude, it's really good stuff.
It is good stuff.
Good stuff. Hello, Internet. Thanks for joining us. We have another news segment that we'd like to cover here.
Absolutely.
A little bonus what if segment here on this. But first, let's go ahead and take a second to introduce ourselves. My name is Darren. That is AJ. And this is the DNA Sports Recap. So how's it going, AJ?
I'm doing good, man. Excited about this NBA news.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited too. Let's go ahead and jump right into that. The reason why we're coming to you in a special edition of this episode here is to talk about the Bradley Beal trade. So Bradley Beal has been traded to the Phoenix Suns in exchange for CP3, Landry Shamet, 4 second-round picks, and 2 pick swaps. What's your take on that trade?
How is there not a first-round pick in there for Bradley Beal?
Oh, that's a good question, and we could definitely get into that for sure. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm willing to bet you there's 3 other teams that were in on this. You had the Heat, the Bucks, and the Kings were all in on the Bradley Beal sweepstakes, basically. All had offers on the table. I'm willing to bet you one of those teams did have a first-rounder in there. However, the reason probably why there wasn't one is because of Beal's no-trade clause.
Because he actually gets to pick where he goes.
He got to pick where he goes.
Absolutely.
So, obviously, I don't know why he picked Phoenix over Miami.
I know why he picked Phoenix over Miami.
Okay.
Kevin Durant.
Okay.
I think that's his opportunity to play with Kevin Durant. They played on a couple Olympic teams together. I think they probably have some chemistry. I think it's just the opportunity to play in Phoenix with Kevin Durant on a team that's obviously reshaped some of that roster. You can tell Phoenix is going all in, pushing for a championship right now because they're out of trade assets.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they have no picks left. I mean, they're chips in the middle. Mm-hmm. Let's win a championship now.
Washington did report that they did have better offers on the table from the Heat, Bucks, and Kings. So it was ultimately Bradley Beal's choice to go to Phoenix. Now, let's go ahead and talk about why some of the things of why this was a bad trade. First of all, Suns gave up practically nothing. Oh, okay, CP3 and Landry Shamet. No offense to him, but 4 second-round picks and 2 pick swaps.
Yeah.
I mean, for Bradley Beal, 3-time All-Star. Right, so you're looking at a player, and you're like, okay, then you're comparing that to like the Rudy Gobert trade, the Donovan Mitchell trade, and you're like, they both had 6 first-round picks, 5 first-round picks, and this one didn't even include 1. Again, I have to probably point to that no trade clause being a big piece of it.
I think that's some of it. I mean, Bradley being able to pick where he goes to play, obviously, the offers come in, he chooses which team he wants to go to, and this is nothing against Bradley Beal, but it's not like he's done anything with the Washington Wizards.
In 2020, he was averaging 30 points a game?
No, individually, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But the team itself has done nothing. It's not like he's able to lead a team anywhere by himself.
No, and
he's not a landscape-changing player at this point.
No.
He's going to be a second or third option on this Phoenix Suns team.
At least a third, probably a third.
I mean, realistically. And yeah. I think that's the big names in this being Chris Paul and Bradley Beal and, sorry, Landry Shamet, nothing against you, but
right.
Poor
Landry.
you see these names, but the reason that this isn't like super landscape changing is because Bradley Beal's done nothing by himself.
They had to trade with whoever he wanted to go with. I think that was the biggest part about it.
Absolutely.
The reason why I think the trade is bad is there's also the fact that they didn't need Bradley Beal.
No.
What hurt the Suns? Depth and defense. Those are the 2 things the Suns don't have. And guess what? This trade doesn't fix either one of those.
Well, yeah, it took away from their depth and Landry Shamet.
Yes.
And Chris Paul's one of the better defensive players that they actually even have.
When his legs are working. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think this fixes any of that. So, again, they had much better offers on the table from other teams, but they had to go with whatever team, like you mentioned, Beal wanted to probably play with Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
So let's talk about why this is a good trade, though. Just like to your point, actually, before we get to your point, Bradley Beal is a 3-time All-Star.
Yep.
He does average his healthiest season to date. He was averaging 30 points a game.
Which is a feat in the NBA.
Yes. Dynamic scorer, dynamic slasher to the rim. And he's going to be a third option behind KD and Book while earning a supermax contract. Do you think he's going to be upset about that?
Absolutely not.
Bradley Beal, all this time you talked about bad front office management, bad players, bad trades, Washington doing absolutely nothing. Did you hear a peep out of Bradley Beal this entire time complaining about any of it?
You're not going to.
No, that's just not the kind of guy he is.
He's a very low key player, but he's also going to the team that he got to pick. If Washington's going to move him, I mean, I think if it's a bad trade for anyone, it's probably Washington because they're most likely going to buy out Chris Paul.
Yeah.
And now they're left with Landry Shamet, no superstar, and in full rebuild mode.
Yeah. And they got 4 second-round draft picks for it.
Yeah, so next couple of years, they're just going to be raking in them second-rounders.
Yeah, well, we'll get back to that in a minute because I think the new CBA has changed the landscape. I don't think you'll ever see another Donovan Mitchell or Rudy Gobert type trade package again in the NBA.
Right.
Because with the new CBA rules, you cannot, it's basically just making it so you're nerfing super teams from being able to do anything.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened to this Phoenix Suns team. They now have no draft picks. They can't do a mid-level exception.
Nope.
They can't trade a bunch of players for one player. Like they want to get rid of Bradley Beal. They can't trade for 2 or 3 players because the new CBA doesn't allow them to do that. So this is really kind of neutered the team in a matter of speaking too.
Yeah.
Really put them in position.
Yeah, it puts the handcuffs on, man. It makes teams like you have to draft players and develop players, and it's not a bad thing. But I mean, hopefully we see the league get more competitive because of it.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Here's the thing that's why I think it's also a good trade is the Suns don't care, man. Just like to your point earlier, they're all in. They don't care. They've got KD for 2 years. 2 more years. They're going to make the most out of it. You got Bradley Beal. You got Booker. Worst case scenario, this thing whole falls apart. They fall out of playoff contention. Guess what? You trade Devin Booker for a bunch of first-round picks, and you're right back into full rebuild mode. If it doesn't work out, you trade Devin Booker, you get a bunch of draft picks back, and you can go into full rebuild mode if you want at that point.
Right.
So I don't really think the Suns care, and I don't think it really makes a big deal. Let's look at it this way. The Suns were the only team in the playoffs to get 2 wins against Denver.
Yeah.
Arguably saying they weren't too far off.
Right.
I think you trade away a player that may or may not be on the courts, has better passing, better on-ball skills maybe than Bradley Beal, but doesn't come close to the scoring potential. And let's face it, I think Bradley Beal's probably a little bit better defensively just because of age. He's serviceable
absolutely.
defensively.
Yeah.
So honestly, I think it's great. I mean, and then there's also rumors floating around that's been reported by Heavy that they are looking to trade DeAndre Ayton for some role players to come back. So I think that
would be one of the better moves the Suns could make.
Honestly, I think it's going to work out okay for Phoenix. I think it's probably the only move they really had.
I think
they're flirting with DeAndre Ayton's contract and the big 3 they had already. They were already flirting with the salary cap as it was. So you might as well do something like this and just blow it out of the water and be like, let's do it.
I think it really, really hurts their depth. We kind of mentioned in the last episode, when you get into the playoffs, you're in a 7-man rotation. The Suns don't have 7 players at this point that they can actually keep serviceable. Do they have the depth to make a deep push into the playoffs? Only time's going to tell with what their future moves may be, but I think that's going to be their biggest issue, in my opinion.
Gotcha. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what Washington's going to do with Chris Paul.
Yeah.
My guess is they're probably going to buy him out.
Chris Paul doesn't want to play in Washington.
Rumor has it that he wants to go back home with his family in LA. So the 2 teams that are frontrunners for that are the Los Angeles Lakers and the Los Angeles Clippers. So let's play a little game, shall we?
Absolutely. I love games.
Would you rather have Russell Westbrook or Chris Paul on a $28 million guarantee contract?
So if they're getting paid the same and you're fully accepted that, if you're looking at efficiency for players, your best option is probably Chris Paul. Chris Paul is a much more efficient player than Russell Westbrook is. He is lights out in mid-range.
Right.
You can't defend him. There's nothing you can do. Every defense in the league is set up to allow mid-range shots because they're, quote-unquote, the most least efficient shot in the league. And Chris Paul will torch you all night long, over and over, and there's nothing you can do. Russell Westbrook, he is obviously way more of a slashing type player. He has a good pull-up jump shot, but he's not a threat from the three-point line. Chris Paul is. You can't leave Chris Paul open at the three-point line. He'll torch you.
Even if they're both making the same amount of money, even if Russell Westbrook is more expensive, I'm taking Russell Westbrook simply because you're the Los Angeles Clippers. You already have 2 China dolls on your team already.
Yeah.
In Kawhi Leonard and Paul George.
Right.
Both of those odds of our...
And Russell Westbrook is a very serviceable player as far as health. Yeah.
He will be there.
He is available.
And he will give you his full effort every single time. For that reason only, when it comes to playoff time, you haven't seen Chris Paul finish a playoff run.
Never has.
You haven't seen both Kawhi Leonard and Paul George on the court for a full playoff run. The only shot you really have, Russell Westbrook.
I say Chris Paul simply because he is a less used player. He has lower usage rate. You've got a lot of hands on that team that need the ball to be effective in Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Those guys are high usage players. Absolutely. I think you take Chris Paul because he's going to be able to dish the ball to those guys. He's going to give you the spacing that you're looking for that Russell Westbrook can't give you. I don't know. I think I take Chris Paul.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. I take Russell Westbrook simply just because he will be there. He'll be available.
Yeah.
Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and Chris Paul. All three of those, I don't think they've ever, all three of them, made one full playoff run ever in their lives. So, yeah.
That's a great point.
And ideally, there's still an option where they can have both, but I think that they're going to probably have to pick between one of the two. So, but yeah, I actually love the idea of Chris Paul going to the Lakers, actually. Trade that was blocked about 10 years ago.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a big time one, dude.
Yeah, because they didn't want him and Kobe and Shaq. And, you know, oh, man, that would have been an insane
Talk
team.
about a super team.
I think that'd be interesting. You know, again, you still have another China doll and AD on that team, but can you imagine AD and LeBron James running pick and rolls with Chris Paul, the one who doesn't turn the ball over? He'd be a huge upgrade to D'Angelo Russell.
Oh, yeah. When you are a score-first point guard for the Los Angeles Lakers with LeBron James and AD on your team, there's just not enough time for you to get your points in, and that's what D'Angelo Russell's always trying to do. So he's forcing up shots, and that's not what Chris Paul's going to do. Mm-hmm. Chris Paul's going to get to his spot, take a calculated shot, and if not, he's going to make the correct pass, get it to somebody that can score the ball. Well, I guess that pretty much wraps it up, Darren. Thanks for watching the DNA Sports Recap.
Till next time.
You did my line.
You did my line.
Well, you looked at me like you wanted me to say it.
I did.
Okay.